Penguin Random House Audio presents The Weekend by Charlotte Wood. Read for you by Pauline Constantine. Dreams and beasts are two keys by which we are to find out the secrets of our own nature. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Chapter 1. It was not the first time it had happened, this waking early in the pale light with a quiet but urgent desire to go to church. Cognitive decline, doubtless. Frontal lobe damage, religion, fear of death. They were all the same thing. Jude had no illusions. This longing, was it a longing? It was mysterious, an insistence inside her, a sort of ache that came and went. Familiar, and yet still powerful and surprising when it arrived, like the arthritis that flared at the base of her thumb. The point was, this feeling had nothing to do with Christmas, or with anything in her waking life. It came somehow from the world of sleep, from her dreaming self. At first when it came, it would trouble her, but now Jude gave herself over to it. She lay in her white bed on the morning before Christmas Eve, and imagined the cool, dark space of a cathedral, where she might be alone, welcomed by some unseen velvety force. She imagined herself kneeling, resting her head on the ancient wood of the pew in front of her, and closing her eyes. It was peaceful in that quiet space of her imagination. Frontal lobe shrinkage, doubtless. At this age, it was inevitable. She pictured the soft grey sphere of her brain, and remembered lamb's brains on a plate. She used to enjoy eating brains. It was one of the dishes she ordered often with Daniel. But the last time she did, 3 tender tiny things lined up along a rectangular plate. She was revolted. Each one was so small you could fit it in a dessert spoon. And in this fashionable Turkish restaurant they were unadorned, undisguised by crumbs or garnish. Just 3 bald poached splotches on a bed of green. She ate them, of course she did. It was part of her code. You did not refuse what was offered. Chosen, indeed, here. But at first bite, the thing yielded in her mouth too rich, like just soft butter, tepid and pale grey, the colour and taste of moths, or death. In that moment she was shocked into a vision of the 3 lambs, each one its own conscious self, with its own senses, its intimate pleasures and pains. After a mouthful she could not go on, and Daniel ate the rest. She had wanted to say, "I don't want to die." Of course she did not say that. Instead, she asked Daniel about the novel he was reading. William Maxwell or William Trevor. She often confused the two. He was a good reader, Daniel. A true reader. Daniel laughed at men who did not read fiction, which was nearly all the men he knew. They were afraid of something in themselves, he said. Afraid of being shown up, of not understanding. Or more likely the opposite. They would be led to understanding themselves, and it scared the shit out of them. Daniel snorted. They said they didn't have time for it, which was the biggest joke of all. Jude pulled the sheet up to her chin. The day felt sticky already. The sheet was cool over her clammy body. What would happen if she did not wake, one of these mornings? If she died one night in her bed? Nobody would know. Days would pass. Eventually Daniel would call and get no answer. Then what? They had never discussed this. What to do if she died in her bed? Last Christmas, Sylvie was here, and this one she wasn't. And now they were going to clear out the house at Bitto's. "Take anything you want," Gail had said to them from Dublin in an email. "Have a holiday." How you could think cleaning your dead friend's house a holiday. But it was Christmas, and Gail felt guilty for flitting off back to Ireland and leaving it to them. So, take anything you want. There was nothing Jude wanted. She couldn't speak for the others. Sylvie had been in the ground for 11 months. The memorial had been in the restaurant, unrecognisable now from the old days. Everything but the name had gone. And there were beautiful food and good champagne, good speeches. Wendy spoke brilliantly, honestly, poetically. Gail lurched with a silent, terrible sobbing, with Sylvie's poor sad brother Colin beside her, unable to touch Gail for comfort. He was 81. He'd been a greenskeeper at the golf club in their hometown, stayed long after the rest of the family left, never managed to get over his sisters being gay. In the end, Sylvie went where nobody expected, an old-fashioned burial in Mona Vale, next to her parents. To this part, Jude and Wendy and Adele went with Colin and Gail and Andy and Electra from the old days. There they'd all stood in the hot cemetery with a sympathetic priest, a priest for Sylvie. And Jude had picked up a handful of dirt and thrown it down. Strange that in all these years it was the first time she'd ever done that, or even seen it done outside a film. She felt silly squatting in the dirt, scrabbling in the dry gravel with her polished nails. But when she stretched and flung and let the earth rain down on Sylvie's coffin, a breath of awful sorrow swept through her, up and out of her body, into the deafening, glittering white noise of the cicadas. Sylvie was dead, and felt no pain. They had said goodbye. Nothing was left to regret. But she was still in there, in that box, under the weight of all that earth, her cold little body rotted away. Gail said she looked peaceful at the end, but that wasn't peace. It was absence of muscle tone, of life. Being dead made you look younger. It was a fact. Jude had seen 6 or 7 dead faces now, and they all, in the moment after life left, smoothed out and looked like their much younger selves, even like babies once or twice. How long did it take a corpse to rot? Sylvie would screech at a question like that. "You're so ghoulish, Jude!" The ceiling fan in her bedroom rotated slowly, ticking above her. Her life was as clean and bare as a bone, bare as that white blade, its path through the unresisting air absolutely known, unwavering. This should be a comfort. It was a comfort. The rooms of her apartment were uncluttered by the past. Nobody would have to plough through dusty boxes and cupboards full of rubbish for Jude. She lay in her bed and thought of cathedrals. And she thought of animals, rats beneath the floorboards, cockroaches bristling behind the crossed ankles and bleeding feet of plaster Jesuses. She thought of dark, malevolent little birds, of the muffled small sounds of creatures dying in the spaces between bricks and plaster, between ceilings and roof beams. She thought of their shit drying out and turning hard, and what happened to their skin and fur and organs, rotting unconsecrated in roof cavities. She would not go to church, obviously, for she was neither a fool nor a coward. She would go instead to the butcher and the grocer, and then the hardware store for the few remaining cleaning things, and she would drive without hurrying along the freeway to the coast. And this afternoon the others would arrive. It was not a holiday, the 3 women had warned one another. But the warning was really for Adele, who would disappear at the first sign of work. Adele would be useless, but they couldn't leave her out. It was only 3 days, 2 really, given that most of today would be filled with the shopping and driving and arriving. And on Boxing Day, the other two would leave, and Daniel would come.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?